The crowd inside the massive space station above Jupiter felt like a living wave of noise and light. The war games were the single most dangerous competition in the galaxy, and everyone knew the rules were strict enough to be called sacred. The first and most important one was carved in shining steel on the gate to the arena. Only full-bodied warriors may enter. No prosthetics, no cybernetics, no missing limbs, no excuses. Yet on this day, the rule that had never been broken was about to shatter. Because a lone figure was walking towards the entrance without armor, without weapons, without even the hands most took for granted. Her name was Ilara Voss, and as she stepped into the light, every face in the crowd turned to see her. Her sleeves hung empty, the fabric moving with the air like the ghost of what used to be there. She walked slowly, not as if she was nervous, but as if she owned the ground under her boots. Each step was silent, yet seemed to echo against the steel walls of the arena corridor. Some laughed thinking it was a joke. Others whispered. Maybe she had come to protest the games. But when she reached the scanner gate and stood tall, the gate's AI eye swept over her with its cold beam. For a moment, the screen above. Her head glitched a flicker of red as if the system was confused. Then suddenly, it turned green. Access granted, the crowd gasped. No one could understand how the machine had let her through. The guards at the side looked at one another, unsure if they should stop her. But the rules said once the scan cleared, no human or alien could interfere. She walked forward. The gates opened and the arena swallowed her whole. Inside the War Games arena was a world in itself, a dome the size of a small continent. The ground shifting between metal plains and rocky hills, glowing rivers of plasma and sharp winds that could tear skin off bone high above mechanical birds, carried cameras broadcasting every move to billions of screens across the galaxy. The other fighters were already waiting, their armor shining, their weapons humming with power. Some were human, most were alien, built for war in ways humans could never match one of them. A towering warrior from the Kordax Empire turned his reptilian head toward her and laughed a deep, ugly sound, his voice like grinding stone, small, human. "No hands means no fight," he said. But Ilara didn't answer. She simply stood at the center of her starting zone, her head tilted slightly as if listening to something no one else could hear. The War Games master's voice boomed across the dome. Contenders, prepare for battle. This is round 1. Remember, defeat means elimination. Elimination means death in the crowd. The audience leaned forward, drinks forgotten, food untouched, eyes locked on the strange girl who dared to stand among monsters without hands. The horn sounded. The ground shook and the first wave of enemies charged towards her. The Kordax warrior led the attack, plasma axe raised high, his speed, terrifying for his size. The others followed, weapons flashing. But Ilara didn't move. She didn't even flinch. She stood perfectly still, the faintest smile touching her lips, as if this was not a battle, but something she had been waiting for all. Her life then almost too quiet for the microphones to catch, she whispered into her comm target acquisition, "Complete the moment." The words left her mouth. The Kordax warrior froze mid-step, his eyes widening in shock, his axe lowering slightly as, if unseen chains pulled at his arms, the crowd murmured confused. The alien's breathing quickened his gaze, darted to the sky where small shadows danced in the blinding lights. Drones the size of coins moving like hunting insects, controlled not by hands, but by the invisible thread of Ilara's mind. One drone dove, another followed, and in less than a heartbeat, the Kordax warrior's weapon exploded in a burst of light and fire, throwing him backward into the dust. The rest of his team stopped, dead in their tracks, unsure if they were next. Ilara still had not moved her eyes, half closed her focus somewhere beyond the visible world. The cameras zoomed in on her face, searching for any sign of effort. But there was none. Only that calm, unsettling Smile, the War Games audience had never seen a move like this before, and somewhere in the VIP chamber, the Kordax Emperor leaned forward, his claws tapping the arm of his throne, his voice low with suspicion. This is not possible. She is breaking more than rules. She is breaking the game itself. The arena floor still smoked from the explosion as medbots rushed to drag the unconscious Kordax warrior off the field. But the crowd wasn't watching him. All eyes were fixed on Ilara Voss, who stood, as still as a statue in the center of the battlefield. She had not raised a weapon. She had not swung a fist yet. Her opponent had fallen faster than anyone could process. The War Games commentator's voice cracked with excitement, trying to explain what had just happened. But there were no rules for this. No precedent in centuries of competition. Ilara's gaze shifted upward to the hovering camera drones, as if she knew exactly which lens to look into, and for a second, billions watching across. The galaxy felt like she was staring directly into their living rooms. A flicker passed through her expression, something sharp and cold, like she was calculating more than just her next move. The horn sounded again, signaling the start of the second phase of the round. The arena's ground shifted in an instant, panels folding and locking into new shapes. The plain transformed into a jagged wasteland of black metal cliffs and narrow pathways. Steam hissed from vents in the ground, turning the air into a hazy white screen. The remaining alien fighters spread out their heavy boots, clanging against the steel. Ilara moved for the first time, her steps slow but deliberate, each turn precise, as if she could see the enemy through the fog in. Truth, she could. Her vision was not the vision of flesh and blood, eyes deep inside her skull. A web of neural implants fired like tiny stars. Her mind linked to a swarm of micro-drones, each one feeding her information. Angles, distances, enemy heart, rates she had been told after the border war that she would never fight again. Losing both hands in a Kordax ambush was supposed to be the end for her, but instead of accepting the medal and disappearing into the forgotten ranks of wounded veterans, she had vanished into the shadows of Earth's outlaw tech markets, where illegal scientists whispered of neurosync combat, the kind of control that didn't require limbs, only a brain sharp enough and a will hard enough to handle the strain, the IA. Training nearly killed her. The first month she bled from her nose every day. The second month she passed out during every session. The third month she learned how to fly a drone without seeing it, without hearing it, without anything but the ghost feel of its shape in her mind. By the time she emerged, she no longer thought of herself as disabled. She thought of herself as a new kind of soldier, one the Kordax would never see coming back. In the present, the alien team thought the fog gave them cover. But every step they took, every weapon they raised, was already in her head. She sent a silent command through the neural link, and two of her drones zipped out of the white haze like twin arrows, striking the power cells of the enemy's rifles. The weapons sputtered and died. The aliens cursed in their own tongues, confusion turning to fear. They began firing blindly into the fog, trying to hit what they could not see. Each plasma bolt lit up the mist in brief blue flashes, but none found. She moved between them like a shadow always. One step ahead, the crowd roared at every weapon failure, every sudden collapse of an enemy fighter. The commentators scrambled to keep up, but their words only made the scene more unreal than without. Warning her, neural link flashed a warning across her vision. Interference detected, source unknown. For a moment, her drones lagged a half-second delay, almost nothing in normal life but in combat. It was death. She scanned the arena's data feed and found the source not among her opponents, but in the system itself. Someone had hacked the War Games mainframe and was trying to override her link. Her stomach tightened. It was impossible to do this from outside the arena, which meant someone inside was targeting her. The interference grew stronger. One drone dropped out of the sky, another spun out of control and crashed against a cliff. The audience gasped. Believing maybe she was finally outmatched, Ilara gritted her teeth. She forced the remaining drones to retreat above the fog out of enemy range. She closed her eyes, ignoring the roar of the crowd, ignoring the static crawling into her brain, and focused all her mental power into a single counter-command. The interference faded, but not completely. The hacker was skilled and persistent. Somewhere in the shifting mist, a shadow moved differently from the rest. A tall, lean figure in armor, too sleek for any alien species. She knew her heart skipped when the figure stepped into the open. The armor's visor lifted just enough to reveal a human face. Not just any human face, but one she recognized from a life she thought was gone forever. The figure smiled without warmth and spoke through the arena comm channel for her ears. "Only miss me, Alara." The voice in her comm was like a knife slicing through the noise of the arena. Sharp, familiar, and dangerous at the same time, Alara's pulse spiked, but her body stayed perfectly still. The mist curled between them as the figure stepped closer, revealing a scar along his jaw and eyes that had once been trusted more than her own. This was Commander Jace Wren, her former captain, the man who had led her unit during the border war against the Kordax. The man who had been reported dead 3 years ago. She remembered the day they lost him, the transmission cut off mid-battle, his ship swallowed by enemy fire. And now, here he was alive, wearing enemy colors and standing inside the war games as her opponent. Jace tilted his head, studying her like a specimen. His voice carried the calm of someone who had already made his decision. "You shouldn't be here, Alara," he said. "Not unless you want to end up like the others." She didn't answer. Instead, scanning his armor with her neural link, the design was Kordax hybrid tech, the kind reserved for high command operatives, which meant Jace wasn't just surviving with them, he was working for them willingly. The fog shifted, revealing 2 alien warriors at his side, their weapons trained but not firing. Yet, waiting for his signal, she asked the only question that mattered: why Jace? His smile was humorless. "Earth left me to die. He said they cut the comms. They abandoned my crew, and when the Kordax found me, they offered me something Earth never could. A chance to live without being a pawn." Ilara's jaw tightened. His words hit harder than any weapon, but she could hear the venom of betrayal underneath. "They offered you survival," she said. "But you traded your soul." His eyes narrowed. "You think Earth deserves your loyalty after what they did to us? They'll use you just like they used me, but you still have a choice. Throw this match and walk away alive. Keep fighting and you won't leave this arena breathing." Ilara's drones circled high above, feeding her every twitch of his body, every shift of his stance. She could tell he meant it. The Kordax were not going to play by the War Games rules, not this time, because the prize for winning this year wasn't just glory, it was control over the disputed star sector between Earth and Kordax. Whoever won would command fleets the size of nations. This tournament wasn't a game anymore. It was a silent war. Jace moved first, sending a coded signal through his armor that turned the air around him into a shimmering distortion field. Her drone's sensors scrambled, struggling to keep a lock on him. He dashed forward faster than any unaugmented human should be able to move, plasma blades snapping to life in his hands. She countered by dropping 3 drones into the fog, their wings slicing the air as they dove toward his power cells, but the distortion bent their targeting lines. 2 crashed into the ground. The 3rd exploded harmlessly behind him. She switched tactics, sending a burst command to the arena floor itself, hacking the terrain generator to shift the ground under his feet. A spike of steel shot up from the metal earth, forcing him to leap back just as one of the alien warriors lunged forward. Ilara swung her mental focus to the alien's weapon, triggering a magnetic overload that tore it apart in a spray of sparks. The crowd above roared at the sudden reversal, but the cheers didn't last. A new alert burned in her neural HUD weapons fire detected live rounds. Not simulation rounds, the Kordax had replaced the safety-locked weapons with real ones, without telling the Council one hit now meant actual death. Jace's voice returned cold and certain. "This is the last time I'm going to ask you walk away. Ilara, you don't owe them anything." But she didn't move. didn't lower her guard because she knew the truth. She wasn't fighting for Earth's leaders. She was fighting for the soldiers who couldn't fight anymore, for the ones who came home, broken, or didn't come home at all. She couldn't let the Kordax take this win, not while she still had breath. He sighed almost sadly, then raised his blades and gave the kill order to his team. They charged at once, their steps pounding against the steel floor, the fog parting with the heat of their weapons. Ilara's remaining drones screamed down from the sky like silver meteors. The first alien went down before he reached her. The second had his armor lock up mid-stride, leaving him frozen in place. But Jace kept coming faster than her drones could react. She felt his blade slice through the air toward her neck. She dropped to one knee, sending a pulse command through her neural link to every drone still airborne, a surge of power overloaded, their systems starting a self-destruct chain. She saw Jace's eyes widen as he realized what she was doing. One drone exploded behind him, another, above them, showering the arena in burning fragments, and the last one spun toward his back engines. Screaming before detonating the shockwave threw them both to the ground, her vision swimming with static. As her neural link overloaded, the crowd roared, thinking it was over. But as she lay on the steel floor half blind, she could feel it in her. The real fight had only just begun. The taste of metal filled her mouth as she forced herself back to her knees. The arena still echoing with the ringing aftermath of the explosions. Smoke drifted across the battlefield, twisting into strange shapes under the dome's artificial wind. She could feel the sharp burn of overloaded neural circuits in her head, each pulse of pain threatening to tear her concentration apart. Her drones were gone, the last of them reduced to smoking fragments, scattered across the arena floor. And without them, she knew her advantage was fading fast, but she also knew Jace hadn't come here just to fight her. He had come to break her in front of the entire galaxy. Through the thinning haze, she saw him rise from the ground, his armor scorched in places, but his movements still smooth and deliberate. The plasma blades in his hands reigniting with a low hum. He looked at her with something between pity and challenge. "You're stubborn," he said, almost like he was giving her a compliment. "You've lost your swarm, Ilara. You can't win now." She wiped the blood from her lip, her voice steady, even if her body was screaming at her to stop. "You've forgotten who trained me." Jace. His expression tightened. Just for a moment, a flicker of the man he used to be before the Kordax colors, before the betrayal. But then it was gone, replaced by the cold soldier standing before her. He gestured to the alien warriors at his side. "Finish her." The two moved in, fast, their armored boots slamming against the steel floor. The first swung a heavy plasma hammer in a brutal arc. She rolled away at the last second, the heat of the strike licking across her back before she could stand. The second alien came from, the side claws extended, slicing through the air. She caught the reflection in the scorched metal and ducked under his swing, grabbing the small throwing blade from his belt with the hook of her elbow and jamming it into the joint of his armor. Sparks erupted as he roared in pain, staggering backward. The crowd erupted at the sudden burst of resistance, but Ilara barely heard them, her focus narrowing to survival. The first alien charged again, and she used his momentum against him, sidestepping and shoving him into the other, both crashing into the arena wall. For a split second, she allowed herself to breathe, but then her neural HUD flashed a warning, system integrity failing. The earlier overload was spreading through her link, threatening to fry her brain completely. If she pushed it further, the medics outside were no doubt shouting at the referees to pull her out, but she knew they wouldn't. Not with the Kordax in control of the match's oversight. This was no longer a contest. It was an execution. She looked at Jace, who stood unmoving, watching her struggle, and understood the truth. He wasn't trying to kill her quickly. He was giving her the chance to surrender, to make it public, to make it humiliating. He stepped forward, his blades dimming as he lowered them, and spoke so only she could hear. "I'm giving you a way out. You can live to fight another day, Walk away now, and no one will call you a coward, they'll call you smart. She stared at him in disbelief. You think this is about pride. It's not. It's about what happens if you win. Jace, if you take that command seat, every world on that border will burn his jaw. Tightened the heat of conflict in his eyes, she had found the crack in his armor, but before she could press it. One of the alien warriors limped forward, a detonator in his hand. The crowd didn't know it wasn't part of the game, but she did. The device was real and powerful enough to end the match in a single flash of light. She lunged forward. No drones, no weapons. Only the strength left in her legs slamming into the alien's chest. The detonator flew into the air and she kicked it hard, sending it skidding across the floor toward the molten chasm at the edge of the arena. It tumbled in and vanished just before it could arm. But the effort cost her vision blurring as she dropped to one knee. Jace moved instantly, not to strike but to grab her shoulder, his voice low and urgent. The next round is lethal. Ilara. They've replaced. Everything with live weapons for the final, you won't survive. She looked up at him, breathing hard. Then why don't you kill me now and get it over with? His grip tightened for a heartbeat, then loosened. He stepped back, blades igniting again, his voice colder than ever, because I want you to see what happens when you lose. The horn sounded, ending, the round the ground beneath her shifting as the arena prepared for the last battle, and for the first time since she entered, she felt the full weight of how close death really was. The arena floor groaned and shifted beneath her as the metal plates folded and locked into their final configuration for the championship. Round the mist and molten rivers vanished, replaced by a jagged labyrinth of black steel walls, some so high they blocked the dome's artificial light, leaving long corridors of shadow. The crowd above was louder than ever, a rolling thunder of voices from every corner of the galaxy. They weren't just watching a game anymore, they were watching a war that had been disguised as entertainment. Ilara stood at the center of her starting zone, her breathing steadying. Despite the pounding in her skull, the neural link was still damaged, flickering at the edge of collapse every attempt to push it felt. Like stabbing glass deeper into her own mind, but she couldn't stop because the Kordax had made their move. The safety locks were gone. The weapons were live, and the Council either didn't know or didn't care. One hit to the wrong place, and she'd be a corpse on the floor. Her drones were gone, but she still had the arena itself. The War Games AI was a living system, a network of sensors, processors, and terrain algorithms all linked into the same neural web she had already hacked once. During the match, she could do it again. If she was willing to risk burning her mind completely, she closed her eyes for half a second, breathing in the smell of scorched metal and ozone, then reached for the AI's core data stream. It resisted immediately, flooding her senses with static, like an angry beast trying to throw her off the connection. But she forced her way in, twisting past firewalls and false signals until the patterns began to change. The corridors shifted in her vision, the steel walls, becoming transparent in her mind's eye, revealing every movement of her enemies. Jace was moving with purpose, cutting down side paths, avoiding open spaces. Two alien warriors followed in formation, weapons raised, scanning for her heat signature. She smiled faintly because she wasn't going to meet them on their terms. She was going to make them fight in her world. Her first move was to rewrite the light map, plunging sections of the maze into absolute darkness, while others burned with sudden blinding glare. The cameras struggled to adjust the crowd's view, flickering between shadows and bursts of white. Her second move was to feed false terrain data into the enemy's visor systems, showing them walls where there were none, and empty corridors where death waited. The first alien fell for it, instantly charging through a phantom passage that ended in a sheer drop into a pit of retractable spikes. He didn't rise again. The crowd roared, half in excitement, half in shock at the brutality. Jace, however, didn't flinch. He slowed his pace, using the sound of her breathing over the comm to hunt her the way he used to in training. Back when they were on the same side, she moved deeper into the maze, pulling his remaining ally with her. A game of sound and shadow, until the moment she struck, dropping a steel panel from above that slammed the alien into the floor hard enough to crack armor and silence him for good. Now it was just Jace and her. She could feel the heat of his presence before she saw him. His footfalls soft and measured his blades, igniting with a deep hum that filled the narrow corridor with tension. He spoke without raising his voice. "You could still walk away?" "Ilara, the match would end and no. One would know how close you came." She stepped into the dim light between them, her voice steady. "Everyone would know, Jace. They'd know. I gave up and I don't surrender." He moved first, his blades a blur in the tight space she countered by locking, the floor beneath him in mid-shift creating a sudden tilt that sent him off balance for a heartbeat. She used it to get close, twisting under his arm and slamming her shoulder into his chest, but he recovered too fast, their blades and fists clashing. In brutal silence, each strike calculated, each step precise. Her neural link flared with pain as she sent one final command to the AI, a command she had never tested before. Neuro-echo copying her mind's combat patterns directly into the arena system. The moment it uploaded, she felt her body falter, her knees buckling, the world tilting, but something else stood in her place. A shimmering, ghost-like projection of herself made of pure light and code. Jace froze as the ghost stepped forward, moving. Faster than flesh could the projection struck his blade aside. Then his second, the crowd screamed in disbelief as Ilara's real body collapsed to the floor, but her echo kept fighting, forcing him back through the maze, step by step, until they emerged. Into the open center of the arena, the horn signaling the end of the round never came because the fight wasn't over, not until one of them fell. The ghost stood tall in the arena's center, its form flickering like heat above metal, but moving with the precision and intent of a living warrior. The crowd could not understand what they were seeing. Ilara's real body lay motionless on the steel floor, her chest rising only slightly with each shallow breath, yet her projection fought as if her will had been poured into light itself. The War Games AI had never processed anything like Neuro-Echo before. It adapted instantly, syncing her mind copy into every combat system in the dome. Her ghost self could see the entire battlefield at once, every weapon, every blind spot, every flaw in her opponent. Jace circled warily, his eyes flicking from her real body to the projection as if trying to decide which was the threat. And then he seemed to realize the answer. Both were her. She struck. First, the ghost's blade, a construct formed from arena energy, slashing in a tight arc faster than any human reflex he parried. But the impact sent him sliding back across the floor. The projection pressed forward not with brute strength, but with the weight of inevitability. Every strike aimed not to kill, but to dismantle piece by piece, cutting through the straps of his armor, severing the power feed to his left gauntlet, locking his visor into a static-filled haze. The audience was no longer cheering, they were holding their breath. The match had left the realm of sport and entered something more primal, the kind of battle that would be studied for centuries. Jace tried to counter by attacking her physical body, knowing that without it the projection would collapse. But the AI recognized the move and shifted the ground between them into a rising wall of steel, slamming into place just before his blade could reach her. He looked up toward the VIP chamber, where the Kordax Emperor sat watching, and for the first time Jace's face showed uncertainty. The Emperor's claws gripped the armrest hard, his golden eyes fixed on Ilara's ghost, as though she had just rewritten the rules of the galaxy. The projection feinted, left, then cut right, disarming Jace completely, the plasma blades clattering to the floor. She stepped into his guard, placing the energy blade at his throat. But she did not strike. Instead, her voice carried through the arena, speakers amplified so every viewer across the galaxy could hear play the feed. Her command went not to any human operator, but directly into the AI. A flood of recorded combat data and security streams filled every screen, broadcasting the proof of Kordax's cheating. and the replacement of simulation weapons with live rounds. It showed the Council the sabotage, the assassination orders, and Jace himself carrying them out for the Kordax. The crowd erupted into chaos, shouts of outrage mixing with stunned silence. Jace froze, knowing the galaxy had just seen the truth. The War Games Council had no choice. They called the match in her favor, banning the Kordax Empire from the tournament and opening a war crimes investigation. The official declaration echoed. Through the dome, Ilara Voss of Earth, champion. Her projection lowered the blade, stepping back as the arena lights dimmed and her real body was lifted by medbots into a stasis cradle. The neuroecho began to fade its mission, complete her last. Words before the light vanished were barely a whisper to Jace. You still have a choice. The medics worked quickly stabilizing her, but she was unconscious when they brought her to the winner's platform. The crowd cheered now, not just for victory, but for the way she had changed the meaning of the games. No hands, no weapons. Yet she had beaten the best warriors in the galaxy with nothing but her mind in the shadows of the VIP chamber. The Kordax Emperor did not stand his voice. A low growl. To his advisors, bring her to me alive. The real war begins now. Far below in the med bay. Ilara's neural link pulsed faintly, as if answering a call only she could hear somewhere deep in the station's systems. The AI kept a fragment of her echo, alive, watching, waiting, and ready for whatever came next.